ahead and get started and just go through the,
We just covered some Hawk Street, so
yeah,
how long did that take?
yeah. Well, with traffic and everything, it
Yeah.
would take about 90 seconds. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. And, good morning, the City of Plymouth City Council special meeting for today, Saturday, May 4th, is now called to order at 8:08 a.m. In-person participation by the public is permitted, but you may submit public comment in written form prior to the meeting by emailing your comment to the acting deputy city clerk at dknight@cityofplymouth.org before the meeting regarding the topic on the special agenda. Email public comments will be distributed to the city council and made part of the official record. This meeting is being recorded. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Alerso. Councilmember Seven.
Here.
Councilmember White. Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Here.
Mayor Ackerley.
Here.
Thank you, have a quorum.
Special meeting agenda item. Note, at a special meeting, citizens wishing to address the council on a matter listed on the agenda may do so at the time the item is open to the public for comment. The agenda item is 2.1 fiscal year 2024-2025 preliminary budget workshop. Recommendation is to review the preliminary budget reports and fund balance projections, receive public comment, and provide staff direction on budget development. And let's just pause for a second to acknowledge that Councilmember Amoroso has now arrived and is present at 8:10 a.m.
I guess I lost track of that. Yeesh.
Item 2.1. Do we need to approve this agenda or anything like
That's fine. Streamline.
that?
You can always want to pull things from the agenda anyways, just for a special meeting, we got rid of some of the. You need all of the formalities.
So, okay, great. Item 2.1. Review preliminary budget reports and fund balance projections to provide staff direction on budget development. Have we received any written public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay, and there is nobody here in City Hall, except for staff and council members. So there's nobody here to make public comment. So I don't need to go through the public comment, right?
Yeah, if someone shows up, you can open it.
Okay. Thank you. So can we please have a staff report?
Good morning. Thank you. We're here with the preliminary budget. It's a draft budget. I provided a lot of detail. I don't expect you to go line by line unless you have questions line by line, but I'll kind of guide you toward what we're looking for as far as direction, and then you can provide any additional approach that you have. Ask questions, we can do follow-up. Preliminary reports have been attached. What we did for ease of system entry, because you see there's a lot of data, the system allows us to escalate the budget from current year to the next year without having to enter each of those. So we've done it at 2% and then edited a few accounts that we know about already. So we'll refine as we go through the process, but just so you know, we escalated it at 2% standard, edited some other accounts, personnel accounts that we know are going to change differently, and some other costs that change. But we'll be doing a bit of refining, but overall, I would expect that that's the total that we'll be looking at, unless we have other changes. So we provided 5-year projections for each fund based on what the current projected cash balance is, and then escalating costs just out forward at about that 2% to show what we think in 5 years the fund will look like. Might not be perfect, but it's just for planning purposes. So we do have some funds that I'll note, and we'll go through those that would show a negative cash balance. So that's nothing to alarm you. What that is perhaps a project that was specifically coded to an account that either is anticipated for some grant funding reimbursement, or it would be funded by another fund within the city, which there are adequate funds to do that. And we just have to decipher. We just have to decipher which fund we would use those. Would it be, if it's general fund money, or if it's related to water and wastewater, if those are the funds. So we have to do a little bit of research. Those date back to 2020 or so at least. So we just need to refine this, but we'll be doing that as part of the budget process and including the plan for how we should deem balances to be able to cover those. So overall, you see that the city has, if you look on, I don't have page numbers here, but the projected fund balance, I'll start there. So with the overall cash balance of the city, we show about 6.5 million projected at the end of this fiscal year. So then going forward, we projected out what those funds would be. So those are just overall totals, general in nature. Don't go into the detail, but just to kind of show you that the city, if you look out to 2029, the city would still be building cash balances. So that's a good thing. So what I've provided are the personnel budget summary, the allocations between funds for personnel costs. Those are the first couple of pages. Those are just to show what we have currently. I'm not aware of any major staff changes, but if there are, then we would just make those updates for any future preliminary budget document. And so we'll be discussing that, taking any feedback from the council, and making those changes for the next one. So for the detailed budget, where we have all of the pages of accounts, so I don't expect you all to be accountants and understand the detail. It's really just to show all of the accounts in the event there's any particular area you're interested in or questions on. But these are just to show we have those covered. I think the revenues, actually, I would anticipate at least property taxes to increase at a higher rate. So that will be increasing unless I do a little bit more analysis on it. And some of the other large accounts, I would expect to increase just a little bit more. So position of the city better. But we just haven't been able to get to that point yet in this process. So this is a good starting point just to show where we think things will start for the next fiscal year. So overall, just the operating costs, you'll see that there's history in the system now. So we've got a lot of things taken care of with the Black Mountain conversion. We still have a little bit of refining. Some of the data isn't as comparative as you might want because some of the classifications have changed over the years, but it shows you the history just so that you know overall what history has looked like for the city. And now in the current year and in the last year, probably more reflective, and then looking forward as to what we think the reporting would look like. So we're about at the point then where we can start some regular reporting so you can actually see that. And then we some informed decisions once we bring those back on all of the funds. Some of the things that I'm thinking of for today, and then of course council has their own feedback they'd like to provide, but I want feedback on any operational changes, and Margaret may already know some, but if there are any operational changes within the city that we need to incorporate into the budget, I would just need to know that. And then any capital projects, because there are some capital funds, and so we just need to know what capital projects the city plans and to incorporate that into the budget appropriately. And then for some funds, for instance, I think there's been talk on the CFDs. So there's funding in the CFDs, and it appears as though at least in the last number of years, most of the costs for CFDs are toward electricity and other components where I think we have the ability to take a look at some administrative allocation to kind of put some of those costs toward the CFD. So in recent years, it just looks like maybe we haven't done as much of that. So it would be a good time for us to reevaluate and make sure that the CFDs are paying for the component of city costs that are reflective of services being received. So overall, I'm just looking for questions. We can answer questions to the best of our ability today, and then any follow-up that you'd like additional information on. And then in our next round of the budget, it'll just be more of a budget document, and the funds presented a little bit differently and not just in a spreadsheet form. So I'd just be looking for questions, clarifications, and then any operational and capital changes we might.
You plan to take us line item by line item, explain, because there's quite a few items here, I have no idea what they represent.
Yeah, and so
Or is that gonna be too time consuming?
well, I think it would be too time consuming, but I'm happy to do what would be best for you. What these are, and your accounting structure here is really detailed, so you'll see a lot of accounts, and those are just to show that we have kind of so that you know the costs of different categories of expenditures. We don't necessarily need to go through them because it would take a lot of time, but I'm happy to go through however would be best for all of you. To me, the detail is just to ensure that we've got things covered and that nothing that you see looks wildly out of line. And then when we bring those to the fund level, I think is for major categories, I think when you bring those to the major category level, like when you see personal costs versus services and supplies versus maybe utilities and capital projects, I think that probably is more toward the level of what I think the council would be interested in.
Thank you. Margaret, did you have anything that you wanted to add as far as the staff report part of this? Thank you, Mary.
I just know that I want to make personnel change in when we move to the next phase of the budget. I'd like to change, I know I have a full-time admin assistant position that is unfilled, and I'd like to change it to a part-time accountant position to get a part-time accountant in the finance department to do the high-level accounting, like the bank reconciliations and the all the high-level bank accounting stuff that we are currently that currently hasn't been being done. But it wouldn't need to be a full-time position. It's only needed on a part-time basis because there isn't a whole slew of that high-level work that needs to be done. So it would actually cost the city less money than a part-time admin position because there's no benefits. The hourly rate is higher, but when you weigh it against no benefits and that, it ends up being less money. So I want to see if the council is open to that personnel change. It would be under 20 hours a week, so that it comes in under that kicking in of the benefits. I do know we want to do some capital projects in the streets. We have a project we wanna do at. Nothing, not me, one of the streets. At 49 and Poplar Mill and
Mill and Locust.
Locust at that intersection that comes off the highway where people come zipping in off. We wanna do some kind of project there to slow down traffic coming in off the highway. We believe we have adequate money in the streets fund. So we wanna enter a capital improvement project using our street funds money that we get from the state. So we wanna add a project in. On. And of course, the COPS fund will change when we negotiate out that contract. I think the water and sewer will change once we get back the fee study from MBS. That change will might change when we go out to Prop 218. Those funds could change for the better in terms of the deficit. Those are my positions right now.
See, everybody's reading and looking. So is the council ready, if I go through all council members for questions, comments? Or I would start with you, Peter, but if you need more time to read, we can just kind of.
Scan. So. I have a question.
Okay. Councilmember Sim?
Sorry, question still, I'd like to start with, explanation of, item number 25, general plan update. Minus 269,480. What's that? General plan update.
That what?
Five-year projection.
Okay.
So that's one of the ones that.
Number 25.
Number 25. So that one dates back, quite a bit, and I'm not sure what kind of general plan update city might have done back prior to the 2020. It dates back
It was like 10 years prior.
10 years,
Sorry.
10 years of.
At least 10 years prior.
So,
We hadn't done a general plan update in quite a while.
so
So what that would be is where, this would be where the cost without. Would have been for probably a consultant that helped to update the general plan and then maybe it went through the county.
that was money that was spent years ago.
Yes, so it's.
Continue, we'll keep our books.
Yeah, right, and so that would just be then part of my homework, is the-
Can't you clean that off?
it would, yeah, so what we'll do is just find out which fund we can take those from, so in my next round of the budget, I'll have a deeper look into these negative cash balances and show where we're gonna move those funds from. It might just be general fund, there might be other capital project money that can cover that. So that's what my next round will be, showing what those current negative balances are and what fund is going to cover that so that we can.
Want a little bit more time, how about we just keep going through?
Sorry. I'm still looking at it.
Can we go like we just? keep
Yeah,
going
go
around?
ahead. Keep going, sure.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, just in a year, well, I guess it's been a little over a year's time, it's amazing how far we've come in terms of our, I guess, transparency and finance, right? Being able to pull stuff up, and I know it's been a tremendous amount of work, and so, first of all, I wanna thank you, right? While we're still continuing to reconcile and clean up, we wouldn't even know we had to clean up if we hadn't gotten to where we are, so, I appreciate it, and I know that, our plan for last meeting was the 5-year projection, but because we identified things we needed to address, we needed to postpone it, but if we hadn't been doing the exercise, right, so anyway, it's all positive, it's all good, we're moving in the right direction. As you may be aware, I've been the one that's been asking for the 5-year projection, to basically in the big picture, see our trend lines, right? At some point, as year to year operating revenue, and expenditures, do those trend lines cross at some point? And right, creating that visibility so that we can effectively plan moving that direction. And that's been discussed, that Councilmember Sim and I are on the ad hoc committee to renegotiate our law enforcement services contract. And so, knowing where those are kind of helps us to tell where we are, right? But also to help us to be able to say, where are we for the operations? And what I think would be helpful, in the 5-year, being able to break it down is almost, by, okay, general fund, here's all the revenue and expenditures. I'm working to, it's a, I think maybe all the information's here, just a different format. So I'm trying to get my mind around it, because I'm less concerned about, for me, definition of a fund balance is basically once we've done a whole year of whatever's left, right? And so just trying to look at it differently as opposed to straight out, this year we expect revenue and expenditures and moving forward. And if you could, I'd just like to understand just a little bit on the assumptions that were used for, what you used for revenue increase or decrease and expenditure increase and decrease. I know it's not, and some of it may be just educational for all of us, right? Because this isn't something that we've done as a city for quite some time, and it'd be a good educational opportunity to understand how these go together. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have a little clip notes version. I'll date myself there. Now it's just Google. Yeah.
So for the current, what you'll see is, so I mentioned just escalating those 2%. So the costs, probably, the expenditures probably are about that. Some accounts higher, some lower. And so as we go through the budget process, those will be refined more, some up, some down, but overall, I think expenditures are probably gonna land there. Some of the revenues, the property taxes typically would increase at a higher rate, so that takes a little bit more analysis in looking at the county and what kind of information they're providing as far as estimates, and going through their budget process, we can kind of steal from what they're looking at as far as increases there, and sales taxes and transient occupancy taxes. So those are gonna be higher, so they'll actually end up higher. So when we go to so this is a very rudimentary 5-year projection. So once we get to a next round, we can actually include the assumptions that we use. We can probably have a list of assumptions for the different accounts, because they're going to be different for, like I say, the property taxes versus the sales taxes versus the transient occupancy taxes. In the current budget worksheet, we just used 2%, but we'll be refining that, and we can show, I would say property taxes are more likely looking in the 4% range. Sales taxes, I'm not exactly sure yet, they probably be similar. So we can list out what the assumptions are for that and kind of make the 5-year projection a little bit more detailed, because this is just to kind of show where the funds are and where we would project them out, but we have more work to do on that. It's kind of the initial first run of finally getting there.
Where would I find the 2% that you're referring to?
So-
Can you give me any, like what page or?
So when you look at the budget worksheets that have the expenditures and revenues, and they're outlined in green, they're escalated at 2%.
Okay.
So that's where you'll see that. And it's not, it doesn't say 2%, that's just
Okay.
the system allows you to add a factor. And so I use 2%, okay, just to globally to be able to escalate that from current budget to the projected.
So just for example, like sales and use tax. This past year, this current year, the budget was $211,000.
So 215 is that 2%.
That's at 2%. Okay, thank you.
I think it'll be more, but this is our starting.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, it's a workshop, so.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is to ask questions and we'll let you know what work we still have to do.
What is the sales tax? Percentage.
7.75.
So being this is a workshop, do you guys feel like I need to go through everybody and,
I just have
or
one
can we
quick
just
withdrawal.
free for all?
I would just, I would recommend it to be very free flowing, just
Okay.
even if there were public here, you could allow them to, you know, you could open it and close it and go back, you really
Yeah,
want to encourage
okay.
dialogue.
Maybe just, maybe an order approach is going through different, I guess, phases, right? Maybe we focus on the 5-year and beat it up, and then when that's done, then we can move on to a different section. As opposed to me having my questions and then, you know, we get to somebody else later who has a different question on the same area, that we're not jumping, you know, but just so that as a thought, you know, because I have questions on a couple of different areas, but I don't want to jump all over.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, why don't we beat up the projected? Let's start with that.
Sure, yeah, no, I like, I mean, since we're on that
Yeah.
subject, right, and thank you for the clarification on the numbers, it would be, you know, I think, you know, ideal of building it in, is if we could separate out general fund from, you know, enterprise fund from, you know, different things, just so we can see that, you know, because when we're looking at the law, just using as an example, right, the law enforcement piece, right, we'd be looking at general fund and the public safety portion of the CFD, where the rest of it, you know, so those are the trends that are most critical, right? And I just use that as a random example, but it's a current event, right? You know, just so we can see those, you know, compartmentalized. At the end of the day, what does the general fund as a total look like, right? And so, I'd love to see that, and I mean, it'd be great to, you know, play with, once we get to pin down those final numbers, just play with Excel and pull some trend lines. It'd be interesting to provide that visual to see how, you know, are we parallel, are we encroaching? You know, because, you know, I don't know, pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? And, you know, sort of creating some of that, but, yeah, I'm continuing to digest the numbers a little bit, and, you know, go through it. So I'll stop there on the 5-year. For now. Thank you.
As far as the projected fund balances, just to clarify for me, for example, could you help me understand why, and you may have already covered this and I just didn't get it, so I apologize, but for TOT, for example, has a certain fund balance, but across the next 5 years, there's all zeros. So does that mean we're just waiting for that data to be entered?
Let me look at the individual funds so I can see. So in that fund, we currently have a budget of TOT promotion support and TOT street expenditures for the current budget year. So that would utilize some of the funding. And so that one is more discretionary nature, so I would just need direction on what the plan would be to spend that. It's not something that each year has something regular recurring expenditure, so it's a decision that either we can come up with a plan and bring that forward, or the council has something that they know that they would like to be funded out of that fund.
But what about the revenues?
So the TOT promotions fund, that's internally transferred, so that's not the TOT, so the TOT actually is within the general fund. The TOT money that comes in,
Okay,
and so then this TOT Street Promotions Fund was created. And I'm not sure what the original intent was, but certain projects or programs are funded out of that specifically. And so the last time money was transferred there was in 2021. So it's internal TOT money that can be used for specific things as the council determines. And so since then, there's just been some items that funds have been used for, but no additional transfers in.
Sorry, you go workshop format, right? On the same TOT, I think it brings up an interesting. I recall, and I could be completely wrong, but within the TOT, isn't there either toward one purpose or another, a dedicated earmark within our TOT funds that must be used for promotions or must be used for streets? Isn't there a breakdown within the
Yeah,
TOT?
I'll clarify that. In 2000, when did that ballot measure go? Basically, when there was a ballot measure to, I think, up the TOT, there was next to that ballot measure, what they call an advisory question.
16?
You don't wanna say 16, there was an advisory question that said, if this is passed, would you want X%, 2%, but
I think we're from 6 to 10.
yeah, but there was a certain percentage of whatever it would be. That would you want that to be on tourism, promotion and marketing, stuff like that. I think that was a yes, but that's an advisory measure. It's a way of. The city hearing back from its constituents in 2016 as to their intent, what they would prefer those monies to be, but they are not restricted. It's still purely discretionary general fund dollars.
I was gonna go there, because it is pretty discretionary.
Just so everybody knows, that TOT went to vote twice.
Yes,
The first time it did not pass, and that's the one that had the advisory attached to it. The second one went as a county TOT increase, and that's the one that passed. I don't think there was any specific advisory attached to that one because it went through as the whole county.
I'm sure on that.
Because the first one we did was just the city of Plymouth, and that had the advisory question, and that failed. And then it came back the next time, because the cities were having trouble getting it to pass, they decided to do as a countywide thing. And I don't believe
Yeah.
there was any advisory attached to that one because it was county. And that one passed through the county.
So on that one in particular, then, something that we could do is to find out what the exact restrictions are, if there are any, and then to take a look at what the cities used it for in the past, and then take a look at what we could potentially use it for in this year or future.
Just to try to clarify, because it looks like it was Measure R, which was to increase the TOT, it's 2012, and I'm on Ballotpedia, which is usually pretty accurate. It's full stuff from the county registrars. On the November 6, 2012 Ballotpedia, Measure R, which was increase the TOT tax from 6 to 10%, so that was the actual increase of the tax. It was accompanied by Measure S, which was the advisory measure. Which asked the voters which way they would want to. Which way they prefer the funds to be used. Both passed. Showed 58%, and since it was a general tax, all of the need was 50 plus 1. So.
I was off on it.
It was
And what is the advisory,
the actual advisory question. Let me pull that up for you. So over there, I'll get back to you in a minute.
thank you. Yeah, I think it'd just be, then we can build that right in and identify, but yeah, I think on that, I'd love to see, you know, I'm sure there's gonna be some street projects, and we get our promotion projects that come through, you know, once a year, twice a year. Anyway, but we'd love to, you know, maybe see some of the, you know, now that we're getting our arms around some of this, to be able to identify some capital projects that, you know, that we can.
Well, we've also,
address.
also in the past, we have done like the cross street, all the new play equipment, that was like $80,000. We used it for other capital projects around the city, so it's been used multiple ways over the years.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm just saying, that now that we have our arms around our new budget layout, now we have our arms around the new budget layout, use it to, you know, get, what's our next project, right?
Frank, are we obligated to use a certain percentage of these funds each year? Or is it discretionary?
It's general fund dollars, it's discretionary.
And is that a current total? 342,689?
Yes.
In that fund right now,
Yeah, at projected to the end of the fiscal year, which is 2 months.
projected through this year.
And part of what we'll do in the budget is to include what the revenue sources that we have are, and I'd like to list what they're able to be used for. That way, that information all ends up in the budget document. So that you can look at it at any time to see what it might be able to be used for a future city council consideration.
But I guess what I'm still confused about is, and again, using TOT as an example. Over the next 5 years, the revenue that the city gets from TOT, is that projected to go up, go down, or stay about the same?
So the TOT revenue is within Fund 1. So it comes in within Fund 1, general fund. And so it's on the detail pages. And so it's expected to increase over the years, and it's just a matter of us figuring out if that's 2%, 3%, 4%. So it's TOT, transit occupancy tax, probably a third of the way down on the first page of the general fund revenues.
Okay, so where it says like 20-21, the $326,000,
Right.
that's the same line, okay.
So we expect it to increase, and I just need to see what the final is for this year to have a better idea for next year.
So I'm looking at 2021, $326,000, and then the following year, it went up over $100,000. And then the following year went down almost, I don't know, 80,000. And then this year, we're at 176.
We also have COVID.
Yeah, what?
That's like some
COVID year. Yeah, no, I know. But this year, and we're 10 months into the year.
And so this year, I think there's some additional revenue that needs to be reported.
Okay,
So
TOT
that's why-
revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm estimating 332, but I don't have a clear picture yet. So once we get the next month or two, then we'll have a better.
Okay, because that was my question, if this year, and we're 10 months into the year. If it's $176,000, say $17,000 a month. So that would be another,
And so that number's just low.
Okay.
There is some additional.
because there's some
We
data entry that needs to be caught up.
We just received this past week several
Okay.
TOT payments.
Okay. Okay, so that was kind of my question is this really super accurate?
Bringing TOT, the funds that are lagging from last year.
I'm not aware of any.
So I think we're gonna focus on the projected fund balance and then move on to other parts of the, all the documents. A question that I have about the projected fund balances is I'm looking, for example, all the way down at the bottom, community facilities district. Current fund balance. of the, I guess, line 80, $70,000. So are you saying that's what we currently have in the balance? Because that doesn't seem right. That seems off by, I don't know, $200,000.
So that's what I'm showing as far as the fund record, so I can do additional research into.
I mean, both funds, for example, the ZRCFD has been around for a while.
So I can confirm those.
Okay, it seems quite low to me. And then revenues, like $45,000 in revenues. I think there's about 80 homes, give or take, let's say 70 homes to be on the safe side. And I think each home through that tax, that assessment pays about $2,000. So that seems like the revenue would be a lot more than $45,000.
So I can look that up too.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So it sounds like some of this, just there's still some
Yeah.
some data that's coming in. Okay, thank you. And then just for clarification, I'm gonna ask what some of these. The community benefit fund. Am I correct in thinking that every time when a house is sold, it closes? A few dollars goes into this, and what could we use that money for?
So the community benefit fund, I thought was an internal transfer fund.
I believe that's Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's on new home sales, and then it's actually got a division out of the categories that it goes to. Off the top of my head, I can't think of them all, some goes to fire, some goes to police, some goes to the streets. There's some other things too,
So those are impact fees you're talking.
yeah, basically.
So those are actually different funds in the 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 funds. So if I'm looking at the history of the system for the community benefit, and there was revenue in 22, 23, and then some this fiscal year, but there wasn't any in 21 or 22. So my understanding was the community benefit contribution, that's what it's called, is that it's some internal transfer dollars towards something that the city wants.
I know because of questions I've had posed to me that are related and unrelated to this topic today, right, regarding the Zinfandel Ridge and reading the development agreement, that there's supposed to be, I don't remember what it is, but a contribution to a community benefit fund. And so I know that was one of the questions that raised for me, okay, what is that? Where does that money go? And is this that fund? And then what can it be used for, right? So trying to tie up some of these. So that may be a first place to look, and maybe that's that contribution. It's supposed to be from the developer, not like the CFD, right? But I don't, and is that earmarked then for a particular use, which I don't know.
Okay, let me try to explain this a little bit. So the community benefit funds are paid at permit. And everybody pays them, not just Zinfandel Ridge, whoever may build a house, which we've had a couple build. They have to pay the fees as well. There's a couple of years that probably don't have anything, because we had a couple of years where we didn't have any new homes built. There was a gap between when Greater Sutherland stopped building, and then Tim Lewis came in and started building again. So during that time, and we don't have a lot of private people building homes. We do have a few, but not a lot. So those two blank years pretty much are tied to that transition between whether Reader Sutherland and Tim Lewis, and we didn't have any private homes coming at that time. So it's not a specific Zinfandel Ridge fee. It's just that obviously there's way more new homes at Zinfandel Ridge than anywhere else in town.
So every time a new home is built, regardless of where it is in the city, this fee is paid. I thought it was paid at the time of closing, but
I'm not sure that's true. I wanted us to double check that because the community benefit fee, I think, was a creature of the development agreement. Specifically, it's not part of our development impact fee program.
Right.
So, you know, it probably would apply to future development as well. In the sense of you wanna have other DAs that are in parity with this DA, you don't want, you know, that what's important about the Zinfandel Ridge and that development agreement, it sort of sets the bar. And so future developers can look at that and see the kinds of things that they're gonna do. I'm not saying that, you know. I just think it's not part of the development impact fee program, so my sense is that it's a creature of the DA itself. And it probably would apply to future development in the city as well. But I don't know if we can say for sure, I have to look at that.
So the lion's share of that 247 came from ZR.
From the developer, from
From the same thing.
Yeah, it goes to the developer,
Right.
yeah. Which they pass the cost on to the,
You know, we know how much that fee is per house, is it based on the cost of the house, or
probably in the DA, if you give me a second, I can look it
or is it
up.
just a set number for per house?
what is,
It's a fee that, as Kathleen pointed out, is required to be paid when you wanna get a building permit issued.
When you pull permit, you pay that fee.
Yeah, and that's
And
why.
it's meant to benefit the community as a whole,
right,
not just one area or the other. It's based on
It's just
who's pulling permits, right? I mean, that's the whole idea, was to offset some of the impacts of
It
ZR.
doesn't matter where,
To the
it
existing
doesn't matter
citizens.
where it came from, I guess
Some
the
kind
question
of-
is, how come, is that an accurate number, that account? Number two is, again, how can we use those funds going forward?
So the development.
Give me a second. By the way, just to turn back on when I'm looking at this, just to return to the TOT question. In 2010, there were two measures, O and P, and those were specific to this, and I'm saying this on the record because this comes up every now and then, so I wanna have a clear record. Measure O and Measure P came to this, was before just the city of Plymouth voters in 2010. Measure O would increase the TOT from 6 to 10%, and it had an advisory measure attached to that.
and that was P.
The P was the advisory measure, so they went simultaneously. And P said, if O passes, do you want that 2% of that increase, there would be a 4% increase at that time? Do you want 2% of that 4% that would be increased to go to these specific services? But measure O failed in 2010. So even though P passed, it was irrelevant because it was. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then in 2012, there was a countywide measure that was for the county, unincorporated county areas. But there was also a city of Plymouth specific TOT measure. So they both went at the same time, but one covers the county areas, but there was one that was specific to the city. Both wanted to increase the TOT from 6 to 10%. I think the counties passed and the cities passed at the same time. And that was the county's measure was measure Q, city's measure was measure R and S. R was to raise the increase from 6 to 10, so 10%. And the advisory measure was going to say 2% of that 4% would be dedicated or not, I don't wanna say dedicated because it was still general fund dollars and the city still had discretion. But it was a way of gauging feedback as part of the vote from the electorate, and the electorate said, yes, we want 2% of that. I assume the language is very similar to the advisory measure in 2010. But I can find that online in a second, because I can find our you can find our agenda packets from that time at the very least, because it would have the ballot question on that. What the specific advisory measure was, but as I recall, it was for tourism, marketing, promotion of businesses, that kind of thing. And then as far as the community benefit fund, it is stipulated in the DA. It just required the developer to contribute to a fund for the purpose of providing ongoing source of funds. It's called the Community Benefit Fund for advancing projects and programs in the city. The city may seek contributions to the Community Benefit Fund from other major developments in the city. But again, those would have to be developed on their own, those have to still be developed formally in the framework of those development. And that essentially it is depending on whether they sell a lot or a home, which I think that's developed or undeveloped. If they sell a lot, they contribute 1.6% of the gross selling price of the lot. And if they sell a home and a lot, which to me is a lot with a home on it, then they contribute 0.4% of the gross selling price of that.
So then wouldn't that mean it's paid after the home is sold? Because if you pull up, if you're the developer. you pull those.
No, so.
And you can get back to us on that. I don't know
Yeah,
if we need-
I think this was the idea of selling with, if the developer sells to a builder. Right, so that could apply, let me spend a little bit of time thinking about that, but
Okay. And then all.
in any event, we've obviously had some custom and practice of getting these fees in over the span of 8 years. Whatever that process has been, because we've been getting money in that account.
And have we spent any of that money? Yeah, but we can. And it really seems like it's not restricted. If I'm understanding that correctly. The reason I'm asking is just to understand that, okay, we've got this little pot of money here, which is nice to know. And as ZR is built out and other future developments, more money will come in.
Is that fund include houses that were sold in this fiscal year or is?
It looks like it because there has been some revenue that was received in this year. It could have been, across the fiscal year, so it could have been received at the beginning of this fiscal year for homes perhaps that sold last fiscal year, but
So the houses that sold this year probably aren't in that fund right now.
if there are others, yes.
Well, there are others, we know at least 5 or 6 of them have sold in the last 5 to 6 months.
Oh.
And there's gonna be another 4 or 5 or 10 between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, it should be in there.
So that's quite a bit of money. That'll increase that fund.
As we're still in the, the 5-year, if I understood correctly, just in building out the 5-year, you used a 2% increase escalator for revenue and a 2% for expenditures, would that be correct?
Well, that's what should be correct, but I see that these are just actually held flat for most funds and they should be escalated for a lot of the funds. Some of the funds are more flat in nature. But general fund should be escalated at 2%, so that ending 2029 balance would actually be better. So that'll have to be factored in.
And the reason I ask is, I think the 2% revenue is, that's pretty conservative, it's pretty reliable, but I mean, as we're seeing, I think a 2% expenditure is probably low, based off of what we're seeing, and I'm not a finance person, I'm a jailhouse lawyer, or jailhouse accountant, I guess, in this case. But What if we use like the CPI or something, so, because if we're using 2 and 2, well, then we would say that our trend would be parallel and the lines would never cross, right? And I know this is a work in progress, this is just a, you know, as I'm thinking through to get something that would be as accurate of a tool as we can make it, and I don't know what tools are normally used or referenced, so.
Well, so a couple of things. So now that we have the information in the system a lot better and back at least to 2021 in the current system, it's easier to get to. So we can see what the historical trends have been, because that'll be some measure. Then also looking at things like CPI, what's increasing out there and different costs. Electricity obviously usually is more, and liability insurance we know is about 5.9%. So line items differently. Overall, though, it's usually lower. 2%, that might be a little bit low, but it'll just depend on when we look at the different categories of expenditures, what that turns out to be. So we'll make it more accurate once we're able to actually see what the trends are in the different accounts. And then for revenues, I would say it's probably gonna be closer to 3 or 4% globally. You know, each account kind of is different. But overall, I would say the revenues I would anticipate they're gonna outpace the expenditures here, at least not capital expenditures, but just operational expenditures.
Just from a application tool perspective, right, as you're putting it in, I know you said you're able to put in the 2%, are you able to do that by line item?
It's global, yeah.
Okay.
It was
It would,
global.
because where it would be, yeah, I mean, great, if we know the law of averages, right, then we have a number, but it'd be. Just out of curiosity, but anyway, yeah, I know this is a work in progress, this is a journey, this isn't a short trip, so I appreciate it, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question about item 34, safe routes to school, minus $502,000. I have no idea what that is.
So I'm not sure of the history of that one, but that's a project that I think was at least partially grant funded. And then as far as what the remainder of
An old grant?
the old, yeah, because this dates back to, I think it was in your 2021 audit, so it's back to at least 2020.
I think we have some Plymouth historians, I'm sorry.
So that actually was part of that Safe Route to School grant and got, takes the sidewalk from Shenandoah Valley School. Built all that new sidewalk along 16, and then basically jumped over and fixed and did stuff all the way through that, like, so that kids could walk more safely between the two schools. So that kind of, that's that.
Was,
That's paid off now, so
and why is
now we're gonna
it,
reapply for the next version.
should it be removed from this?
So what this is that it was recorded in this fund, so whether all of the reimbursement was received for that, or whether maybe some general, there could have been match funding that should go with that, so I need to.
Still an active account, like you're saying. Still an active project.
Oh,
I
no,
don't mean physically, but
it's a fund, it's
Fund,
just a fund, yeah, to reflect specifically those expenses.
Right, so if we go for the next round, for however that goes out, yeah, that account's already set there, so that when it comes in, Safe Route to School grants, you know, that account.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand why it says negative 502,000, I'm having a hard time with that.
Sure, so that would be that either there, I think all of the grant funding was received for that, so it would just be a matter of going back to look at the project information to see what the additional funding was planned to come from. It could be from general fund, or it could have been, it might be eligible for an impact fee fund. I have to look at what is eligible to cover that, so it would be a transfer to balance that out, so either from a general fund or an applicable capital project fund,
Okay.
then it would wash out, but we keep the fund, but eventually it'll be at a zero balance for any future projects.
so you should, we're not on a bottom, in other words.
Right, it's
The
just,
funds came in.
right, and it's just a matter of what the additional,
Project, I believe, finished
Sign off,
over a year ago, right?
oh yeah, at least, yeah.
Well, over a
I
year.
think it was right after she came in. Didn't you close out the
No,
Safe Route?
This was like 2-3 years
Was
ago.
that for you? So maybe it was Rexton. That's-
Yeah.
Okay.
This was, I remember, this was almost closed out. in like the summer of 19, August of 19.
Yeah, because
So we had that-
Jeff kind of finished it, but then he went away and I think whoever came in had the final.
Can't that be looked at and see always get, find an end date to this thing, get it out or
Yes.
out here?
So it would take away from the balance of some other fund, but not the overall.
Correct, because it's factored in overall, so it's just a matter of, is it something that was gonna be funded from general fund or an impact CIP fund? So then, what I wanna do is to identify those once I have a chance to do all the research and make sure I know where I can legally and logically take it from, and kind of put it in a table to show where it's coming from and going to, so that you have the trail.
So since then, the work that was done in front of City Hall, the curb, the crosswalk and the sidewalk, is there a line item for that? Because it's more recent than this, that project.
That wasn't part of the safe routes.
Sorry?
That wasn't part of the safe routes. I think that was TOT tax money.
Oh, well, that came out TOT?
I think,
Oh,
because Rex did.
that's what I got.
Something Rex
What is the Miwok Indian Project Fund?
did. Our old legal fund.
That's how we're tracking our expenditures for,
Oh, it's not part of the existing legal.
that was already a line item,
Okay.
and that's how we're currently tracking expenditures for anything that's happening right now.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just for clarification more than anything. The FEMA funds, I'm assuming that that's the Aurora ditch monies that we received from FEMA after the sand fire, and if nothing's happened, so it's been sitting there, I'm assuming.
I think these FEMA funds are from the recent storms and no.
We haven't received any of that money, it's still going through reviews.
Yeah, because it used to be much higher than they.
These are old, Mary's saying these are old funds that she needs to find out.
reconcile.
I love the fact that they're all here, we're just all on this journey together, reconciling.
I'm pretty sure they're Arroyo ditch, because at one point we were gonna move forward with RE Bioengineering, remember? And we still had some funding money. But we haven't
Yeah.
moved forward on that process.
Line 45, and 145 is the capital improvement Royal Bridge.
So
Need to be there.
yeah, so if the FEMA fund doesn't have any reimbursement coming in, then it would just go to that fund 45, that's so.
Is number 45. Is line 45, is that FEMA money, 135?
No, that would be
Where did it come from?
capital improvement money, capital improvement money that was set aside or collected, I'm not familiar on the history of Aurora Ditch.
It's probably monies from. Rancho Victoria, when they were taking the water for a pond. Because they were paying to maintain it and give us some money, water. Water, call. That was gonna be the part
Really
really,
that much?
I can't remember how percent, don't. I don't know, there was a decent agreement, because I mean, I was gonna obtain that one.
Is that an ongoing fund?
There's been no additional activity
Since,
since at least 2020.
Number 83, Lodgeville capital improvement, the balance of $12,500. Does that mean we've got that sitting in a fund and it can be used for roof repairs, a new AC, whatever?
Yes.
Where does that money come from?
In the past, it was monies raised by the Lodge Show Group, which was a group of 4 or 5 ladies that kind of came together and they think they want their own money into it, plus it's a fundraising. So over time, I think
Yeah.
that was kind of the seed money starting the
Okay.
project, then we got grants to do the deck.
Yeah.
And the overhaul of the main, that lower part of the hall.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of reside into all that.
This money left over from that?
So this might be something to carry it forward.
Yeah, there's been no additional revenue
Yeah.
since at least back in 2020, and there was 1,500 spent out in 21-22. That's it.
And on fund 40 water enterprise fund, if we show a negative 198,000, you know, it looks like it carries over every year, is that the difference between what we collect for water and then what we ultimately subsidize for water? Would that reflect that number?
Yes, that's what that would indicate.
So that's our, where we're subsidizing. I know, I mean, a question, you know, that I have in terms of the water is where we would show that allocation in the budget, right? Where, yeah, should we pull from the fund balance to make the fund whole? So water is paying for water, but showing that in the budget that we're taking that money as the allocation, then, you know, when we approve it, we're approving that allocation, right? Because I think it's been reading between the lines, it's there, but, you know, I'd like to bring emphasis, I think it's important for us to bring emphasis to it, especially with us coming up to a point where we have to make a decision that we're ultimately short sheeting our own bed at this point, right? We're spending our reserves to pay for operating expense, so. Thank you, that was a question.
A little on that too, I'll add. Yeah, historically, from lots of conversations with Jeff, or his partner. The water fund and sewer fund kind of go back, they keep each other afloat. They borrow from each other and it just kind of, you know, they pay and borrow to keep themselves moving down the road. So that's kind of, because we don't have it, you know, we're not in a plus situation.
I think for operating.
Yeah.
What you're saying is absolutely true, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
coming.
not saying it's right or.
No, but it's completely appropriate,
Right.
but what I'm, in this, where this case is different,
Right,
at the end of the year, when you borrow from each other,
Right,
everything has to
zero
be, everything has to be put back.
should be.
And it has to be reconciled. In this case, with water, we're still $198,000 short because our water that we're buying costs the city $198,000 a year more than what's being billed
Right,
for.
because of, we haven't done the 218 yet.
Yes, so, and, but yes, so I agree.
And water has other funds, so when it's reflected within water, you have your water impact fee funds, et cetera, so it's kind of borrowing within itself. So we'll have a way of showing that better in the budget, I think that'll be important.
Yeah, I mean, it would be probably
kind of a
the water fund, it'd probably be a revenue piece and it would be, you know, from fund balance or something, yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't have any more on the 5-year, Doug,
Sorry.
any
What is you?
any more questions or comments on the page, the projected fund balances?
That's one right now. Okay.
No,
Peter? Okay,
we got to say part of it. Where's mine?
yeah.
He's paying one.
He's made one there.
What about the first page? Anybody have any questions or comments on the personnel allocations? For the budget?
I have one, and then it's come as a result of current conversations, right? We have our, well, I guess the CFD is technically general. It's a general fund, well, no, it's discretionary, but it's CFD, and as I understand, we're at this point using about 1/2 of, I don't know if it's a half FTE, or at least half a person, one person, 50%, so it may not be a half FTE. But is, you know, using time, spending half their time within ZR doing work up there, and I wanna make sure that we're allocating that time appropriately, right? Is, you know, like I said, I've had different questions posed to me and I'm going through trying to unpack, and as I understand now, the streets and the ditches and the right of ways are all private. The only thing that's public currently in ZR is the park itself, right? Everything else is to some degree, and there's more unpacking to do, but and I don't wanna go down this rabbit hole today, cause but I'm just saying in terms of allocating costs, making sure that we're getting that money back and not basically using general fund dollars to pay for maintenance of a private piece, right? So just making sure that allocation is in, however, whether it's here or, in the budget itself, or it's just in accounting.
Yeah, and so there are some costs coded to that. There's an admin piece, but I think that could be for NPS on administering, the collection and reporting. So I think that we need to look at doing an allocation plan to make sure, because that we're allocating costs to that as appropriate, because there are funds left over, even if the revenue piece is what it is. The 45,000 that we're showing, we still don't spend all of it in a fiscal year, so we wanna make sure we're allocating appropriate costs there, so we'll look at that for part of this budget.
Yeah, and like I said, this is a big old rabbit hole that I don't intend to go down today, but if all the streets and the pathways and the common area landscape maintenance is private, and we're doing as part of the development agreement, right, that we are responsible for maintaining that, but if those are truly owned by Zibido Ridge HOA or whatever it is, we need to make sure we're accounting it. It's a gift of public funds to maintain private land, right? So however that looks, I wanna make sure, or it could be, and I wanna make sure we're not, right? And so this is a complicated rabbit hole that I don't tend to go down, but there's an accounting piece we need to make sure we address.
Yeah, and I don't wanna further go down the rabbit hole, but I'll just briefly say there is a landscaping component of the CFD, landscaping maintenance component that the CFD is meant to go towards, and the city, there's a large stretch of Zinfandel Parkway that we've recently learned from 49 up until where I think it splits roughly around there. That although it's still technically privately owned in fee, the city has broad easement obligations, right-of-way obligations with it, so they have to still operate and maintain it, control it, as though it was a city-owned right-of-way. So that in effect is going to be very much similar to any city-owned right-of-way, because we have broad easement rights with respect to it. So I anticipate a lot of landscaping maintenance control will still be at that stretch. But I agree with your point in principle, Councilmember McLaughlin. I just think that to the extent that the CFD obligates and allows use of CFD funds for particular services out there, I'm not separating the public safety piece, but just the landscape maintenance, all that, then there is a proper allocation that has to be done. We just want to make sure, obviously, we're doing it in the right areas and not obviously purely private common areas of the HOA.
And isn't that the maintenance and the landscaping that is currently being provided by city staff, isn't that currently being billed back to, or cost recovery from the CFD, isn't that coming? I know maybe not everything, but what, like, for example, what the city was paying the previous landscaper Simmons.
We are billing back the amount of what Simmons did
Yeah.
for the maintenance of Zinfandel Ridge Parkway. But we have not been doing any cost recovery for the work that our public works has been doing out there on the other streets, and that has been, we've not been billing and doing any cost recovery for the other work it's been doing out there.
But, and again, maybe I'm going down the rabbit hole, but the city could, right?
Yeah, so
And should, yeah.
what I was actually just talking about this with Mary is developing some kind of cost allocation plan for centralized services, because it's very common, you have different sources of revenue in any public agency. And figuring out what are those centralized services where people work on certain areas and other areas, and you can allocate a certain percentage of that FTE, for example, 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.3 or whatever to X fund. So that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
To also help use the actual CFD funds that are coming in
Yeah.
and making sure that. When work is being done, that is being expended with the CFD funds and it's all. It's proportional to the services that are being provided.
Yeah, and that's where, I brought it up under the personnel allocation, is adding a column for CFD, since that's a separate funding mechanism for O and M budget that's not designed, it's designed to be used every year to offset the operating impacts of the new development. So, 3% of, Margaret's salary and 3% of your wage and 15% of Kathleen's, because she's managing, whatever the number is, right, would be, out of that CFD, combining to be the whole. And then obviously, as we add more CFDs, then, the allocation would adjust.
Yeah, we can reduce. This gives me feedback.
Mhm.
Spread out.
Any other questions or comments on the personnel budget allocations? I know I have I do.
Can we talk about the code enforcement officer? You're still the same person, doing the same thing. And what is that? Not sure what that person does.
Does he still come out on Fridays?
So Scott responds to all the requests for compliance complaints that come in. So we're on a complaint-based system.
Are we getting a lot of complaints?
It comes and goes. It's-
This year, so any idea how many complaints we've received this year, roughly?
I'm guessing. I'm guessing around 25.
Sorry,
I'm guessing around 25,
Per year?
this year.
just this year.
As far as being on a complaint-based driven system, is that in the municipal code? Okay.
No. Every city has different programs, whether it's code enforcement or pavement replacement, right? And I'm blanking on all sorts of programs that cities can have, code enforcement being one of them. And it's a policy choice as to whether you want to make that a complaint based or you want to have some affirmative, I don't want to say proactive because that makes the other one seem like it's not, but a more proactive index, and we're gonna work with certain. Like you can dictate based on policy how you want that to do. Now, in smaller organizations, again, I'm not putting my thumb on the scale there, I'm just saying as a matter of fact, smaller organizations, even larger organizations actually. For the most part, the code enforcement is gonna be complaint based, just because you don't have the resources to have some kind of proactive. I know some cities have certain programs within code enforcement that they do have a proactive program that they go out and they inspect certain properties every year. I'm thinking of Rancho Cordova, they have a rental housing inspection program among their broad suite of code enforcement program. And in that one, they do an annual inspection, but in that case, they're getting a annual registration fee from the property owner, helps pay for that. But even there, they're doing a lot, they have a robust code enforcement program, a lot of their stuff is complaint based. The difference is they have like 10 full-time code. So, but it's still in principle, complaint based.
Thank you.
Unlike the city of Sacramento. Well, the city of Sacramento says I'm not actually looking for stuff every day. Or are they more complaint based also? Cause it seems like they get targeted.
I think they probably, maybe they do both. I can say this, they have a robust cannabis cultivation program among their sort of code enforcement suite of things, and that was pretty proactive, but there was also a huge revenue component to them for that. In the form of penalties, so.
One of the big differences too is if you don't do complaint based and you send code enforcement out, there becomes all these complex things about how you have to monitor where they're going. They have to go to every house, every neighborhood. You can't just go to one place. You leave yourself open for some scrutiny. And you need all the documentation to back yourself up that you're not picking on a certain type of unit, a certain neighborhood, a certain person. It gets a little complex. Like Sacramento, they have an in-house attorney just for code enforcement.
Yeah.
And that is so far beyond our resources.
My question is, you have this job, this person for 2 or 3 years now, and are we getting our money's worth? Do we need it? I totally understand the complaint driven source, but I'm just not sure that we're getting enough complaints to have even a part-time person. So I would know that, only staff knows that.
So would that be a conversation to have at a later time? Maybe when.
I think that's a policy discussion for a later time on how you want the code enforcement program to operate.
I agree with that. I just thought I'd open it up.
If I could just say one thing, the code enforcement officer we have right now is a trained code enforcement officer. I was doing it before and I've even had a gun pulled on me. I'm personally not gonna do that again. And that is one component about this, is that you really need somebody who's been trained to do the job.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I just add one more thing to close. I think this person should at least come to council at least once a month or every other month and give some kind of report as to what's going on. Because we're sitting here totally in the dark, not knowing what's happening, and we hear nothing. Why is that? And so, don't you have to answer the question, just bring it up.
You know, it's okay. I mean, I can run reports at any time. So, I mean, if you guys want monthly reports
I
on
think it
this
should be
system.
written, I think to just show up once every 2 or 3 meetings, just give us a 5-minute recap of what's going on, that's all.
No, I understand that. There's a cost to that.
I need paperwork.
Yeah, I would suggest that we have this, I would suggest we have this part of the policy discussion later time.
Sorry, yeah. Move on. No, right.
Alice.
Any other comments, questions about this personnel allocations? Councilmember Sid,
Homework things.
any other?
One question, I'm just looking at all of it. Who is the superintendent? Is it Sally?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor McLaughlin?
Nothing else.
Okay, nothing for me. So I guess the next document would be the one titled the budget. Well, I don't know.
So the budget worksheet, that's the detail of all of the accounts.
That's the way you need to stay away from.
Well, and I'm happy to
Which
answer.
I don't blame
questions. I think the others maybe summarize where you would have your question when looking at the projections, but I'm happy to look at any of the detail. As I said, we're still refining the line items as far as, you know, what's really gonna be the projected increase for the revenue part of things. I think will be higher. The expenditures, we've done globally at 2% just for ease of entry because that's the way the system works. But then we'll be dissecting those a little bit further. The personnel have been entered exactly as we calculated it. So then the other line items, we'll just take a look to see that it looks like there's an adequate increase or it's too high, we can bring it down. So it's just additional refining that we need to do, but you know, happy to answer questions, but you don't need to feel like you have to walk through every line of it. That's completely up to you.
I just wanna say, I mean, it's just where, I guess where I started. I love where we're going with this. I mean, the budget lays out, the previous 5 years, and what we're proposing this year. It's all the information we need. Which is, well, at least I'm certain at some point in our history we had it, but I know, like when I joined council, was the proposed budget was like a page and a half or something. And fortunately, that wasn't ever adopted, but I just love where we're going on this and the format it needs to follow. So just wanna commend you on that. I think, I don't know if this would be the time or place in this, but we'd be hearing from staff collectively of looking at. All right, we have our general annual O&M budget, right? But what are some of the things, what do we need to be looking at? What do we need to be considering? What do we need to be thinking about in the big picture and plan for budget wise? Are there any big, expenditures? I know we talked about a couple of positions in the streets project. Is there anything else collectively that we need to look at, not buying, we need to say, hey, we need to replace our, $500 lawnmower, that doesn't need to be, I mean, somewhat sarcastic, but just saying, but some of the bigger projects, what do we need to look invest in? I know that we're working with the Parks Grant, the McGee Park update, so that's kind of in the works, separate, combined with this, but separate, right? But from a day-to-day, what capital projects should we be looking at this year? What things should we really start to get on our radar? And I love the fact that we're actually in a position to be able to have this conversation. With last year, we were like bailing out the boat with a leak in it. We fixed the leak. Now we're moving forward. I love it. So I just throw that out if that's a direction, if anybody would like to go.
Well, I
Well,
know, I'm sorry.
I like where you're going with that, but I think it almost gets the carpet for the horse. I think we need to figure out a projection of projects and things, we need, what we need to do in the future, then we have to then build where we find money to do these projects. I think, I agree with what you're saying, you kind of have to identify some monies, but projects have to be kind of identified by through a workshop, organizing.
Yeah, and I think
That whole thing.
I may not have enough coffee or maybe still mountain time, but that was my intent, right? Let's
Right.
identify the projects and then what's out there that we need to be aware of and potentially.
Definitely take a workshop. So, with product to come in and let's lay out, our vision,
That's what this is, right? In some ways, I don't know, or,
No.
right? I'm up to the wishes of everybody, so.
I don't know if this helps or not, but I don't really have specific big projects, but just in general in public works, what we're running into is a lot of deferred maintenance and a lot of compliance, because a lot of the rules have changed and other things have actually never been done that I'm just now getting compliant with. And just the economy, our fuel costs and things like that, or our chemical costs, they're just skyrocketing. So that's just a general statement about public works.
Yeah, and I love, deferred maintenance is an Achilles heel of every public organization, but I know some of the vehicles, some of our folks drive, they do an amazing job of flipping these things on, they've got to have a gazillion miles on them, right? So at some point, okay, we need to plan a vehicle replacement and build that in, do we put money aside every year for a vehicle replacement, or do we do a fleet lease or looking, but that's where I'm putting some of this conversation out, right? Those bigger pieces that deferred, maintenance and, let's prioritize maybe some of that and find a way to start rolling some of that in now that we have our arms around what money we really have, right? Where we know we're short every year in water, but we may have water capital, just as an example, right? But starting to incorporate some of these pieces so that we don't again defer it and take it another year, right? So, whether today is the time, I'll defer to everybody else on that, but it'd be nice to have a part of that we can, build it into this potentially, or at least maybe start the conversation, but whatever the wishes to everybody else. I'm just one.
I have a quick question, and this is almost really kind of silly, but I want to ask it before I forget it. It's kind of totally unrelated to this, just really quick question. Looking at the personnel budget, my question is the city clerk and the city treasurer, those are the two elected positions, right? Are those two positions, are those two individuals receiving the salaries? Or is it like for us, I'm thinking if I'm not at a meeting, I don't,
They receive their salary no matter if they attend or not.
okay, thank you.
Why did they get that?
I was just gonna ask, what, is there something that requires us to pay that if they're not here? And I don't know the question, I mean, just, maybe we've always done it that way, but is there something that requires us to do that?
They're elected officials, and I think that's a rank question.
Yeah, I think it's set,
probably.
it's the set for the government code.
Wouldn't that work to council also, or is that?
There's different rules for
Oh,
election council members versus others.
Gotcha.
I can check the statute right now.
So who determines their salary? Okay.
Just say.
The state.
Okay,
We may have a little bit of latitude under the state statute, but like I said, give me a couple minutes and I can double check the state statute right now.
So it kind of seems like that's just, that's the way it is, if that's set forth by the state.
Maybe, let me confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how.
That's Kathleen.
It is, I'm gonna run for career.
I have a project
Make
that,
more money, don't have to do anything.
I have a project that I know we need to do. We need to re-roof this building.
Re-roof.
Yes, we need to re-roof this building.
It's 10, right?
It's leaking.
But is it 10?
Is it
Yes.
10? Yes.
Okay, I have a company that I saw, that I met, I have a whole thing on it, and they spray over the top and it seals the whole roof down. And
Silicone,
it's way cheaper.
silicone.
It's kind of like a silicone, yeah. I saw it at the League of California Cities, not last year, the year before, and I
Okay,
got the information of how,
all right.
So if I
way
could
cheaper.
offer a suggestion for how we're gonna go, that we make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask questions about this budget piece. And that when we've decided that, okay, we're done, no more questions, no more comments, then we can take a short break. And then we can come back and kind of go back to like what you're saying, have some planning. I know for me, I'd be interested in, hate to put you guys on the spot because we didn't give you time to prepare, but to come up here with you, Kathleen, if you can think of everything that needs to be done, you've already identified some things. And everybody, and obviously according to, that would be my proposal for what we do with the next couple of hours.
Yeah, I like it.
Kind of staying on, and everything from.
What if we run out of questions?
Well, then we all get to leave.
So are we done with budget or we're gonna?
No, I wanna make sure that we're done with this budget, these multiple pages. So. And I did. Apologize if I cut anybody off. I think you were kind of talking about. Anyway, did you have any more questions or comments on?
No, I like the format, I like the layout, it's easy to track, I mean, these are just the numbers, and I know they're not the final numbers, but I mean, there's nothing in here that's jumped out at me, I just love the direction they're going, so I don't have any further.
I'm good.
Okay. Councilmember said.
So I'm surprised about a few of the balances, some money we had no idea we had. Couple funds and then places. The Zimmerdale Ridge showing only $70,000 in there, that was kind of disturbing to me as well, but these are all things I think will, I guess we'll get answers down the road as to why that is. So, I'm pretty good, but it would be, budget as well.
I'm looking at donations, I wanna know who donated $1,000 to the city, this.
I think it was a vendor that did went really well at an event,
Wow,
donated 300 of that 1,000.
wow, that's awesome. Thank you to that person.
Great, right?
They were fire, were smolder now.
Uh-huh.
So
Website maintenance. Website maintenance contract services. I don't know what page it is. It's almost $17,000 a year. I don't know what that is.
It's the company, pretty sure it's the company we hire that does the maintenance of.
So, like if city staff wants to add something to the website, like spray and flame. Is that person the one city staff tells that person, oh, can you please add this piece about? And they do it?
That's correct. And I think I've been coding our website stuff to code. Because there's nothing better. I've been coding it to the wrong place.
And then down a little bit from that, CS expense. CS expense. Okay, I mean, it's an old one, computer software. Okay, FM expense,
Facility maintenance.
okay. IT, it's IT. VM, vehicle maintenance. Okay,
Those were codes that we were getting rid of.
okay. How come something like FM expense, for example, would be in there twice?
So there's a different department, I think, so which one are you looking at?
Well, there's the first page towards the bottom.
Right, so the first 3 digits of the account code is the department, so those are broken out for the right department.
Okay. Okay, so 51900. Okay. I don't have any other questions about.
what with the EDP expense for $100,000. What's the EDP?
Where do you see that, Doug?
What are the account numbers?
EDP 142 7692.
EDP is often electronic data processing, so I'm wondering if there was
Oh.
a system back then?
You're right. Put that in 21.
Yes, that's when we changed over to the state from the ancient.
Sorry about that.
Double check. Is it like it? Seriously, I'm joking.
I don't know if it can be done, I don't know how much work it is, so I'm throwing it out as just overhead. Like with like just using the EDP expense, is there a way to just write some of these acronyms out just for, I mean, we're gonna figure it out in the process, but for transparency,
Could you do a little legend?
Well, you know, we actually, something like that, it's short enough, we can change the account title in the system and it won't hurt anything.
yeah,
So we can expand it for some of those that aren't easy to ascertain, because we
Yeah.
love our acronyms.
yeah, we do.
Right?
And acronyms, each acronym is used by different organizations 1,000 different ways, right? And it just, it would eliminate some of the questions here and obviously eliminate questions from the public as well.
Yeah, those are short enough that we have enough characters within the account description to expand it.
Perfect.
It also seems like it's part of the accounts that it can be eliminated from this. thing. Like that one, for example.
So that one, it only shows up because it's got historical information. So when I pull it out of the system, it's gonna show up there if it's got information in any given year. So if we used it in years gone by, it'll show up if there's a dollar amount. If we didn't use it in years gone by, but we use it now, it'll show up now with zeros or blanks in historical information. So it's because it comes out of the system.
Next year, that one will drop off because.
So under expenditures, the water enterprise fund. Down towards the bottom. Says like website maintenance contract services. $3,500.
So that would be the same, we had it in the general fund also, and we note that it's been coded out of the contract services account in a different department. So this would be the same one where it's, well, I'll just have to see where it's being coded currently, class it. So that's for the website, and so each general fund, water and sewer get a part of that because they should be allocated costs for that part of the website maintenance, because there's some water information, sewer.
So is that part of that $16,000?
This would be additional, So it's broken out, general fund has 16, this has 35, and I'm assuming probably sewer has 35%.
So does that mean for website maintenance, we're paying over $20,000 a year?
I'd have to see what the actual is, I haven't done an actual invoice, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a sewer enterprise 45.
So just so you know, the responses just came in from the IT RFP. When I finish that, I'll be doing the RFP website. I'll be doing RFP website, and so the cost for that, that's all. Because the current website person that we have was hired under a grant, and the grant is finished, so I have to go out for part.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. I don't have any more questions about this part. Peter?
No, I think we've done a good job. I said.
I was looking at the annual dam fee. Margaret, we were talking about the invoice we paid here a few weeks ago for $16,000. But I see on here it says 52,116 in 21. I don't understand. I know that $16,000 dam fee is an annual fee, right? But I understand what this number here means. It's you see it there? 52,116.
Water?
Sewer, no, it's the sewer plant. Sewer. And so should say to your number, easier.
Damn feet.
Actually,
I don't know if there's.
I talked to the California Water Resources people about the 16,000 last week. Our sewer plant has a holding pond out there. It's 52 feet tall from bottom out. Any structure or water retaining facility that's over 25 feet is deemed a dam under the state's rules. And therefore, and then the fees for the annual fee is based on also the amount of water it contains within the dam. So they do that math and they give us a bill for $16,000. I asked the fellow, gentleman engineer, so is there any way we could reclassify this dam as something else? So we're see, well, we'll come out and do our annual inspection in a few months. We'll get all of you folks, not look at it. We can do something like that. It looks like it's been going on for a long
We've
time.
been fighting this for a long. And our big issue is that the dam is dam. So it's like our dam, which is microphone dam. Falls in the same category as Folsom Dam. Or Hoover Dam or whatever.
Yes.
Turn on.
No. So what I was basically saying is that with the state, our little small dam that barely qualifies, there's no degree. You either are a dam or you aren't a dam. So our little tiny dam, which is tiny, falls under the same classification as say Folsom Dam or even Shasta, even extremely large dams. And we've kind of been going back and forth with the state for several years now. Because we're supposed to also file this special report that's like $20,000 to $30,000 to even pull together. You have to have these experts do it. So we've been battling that for a while because we kind of feel like there should be levels of dams. And yeah, exactly, that's what I would call it too. And the danger from our dam is so much different. Because if it goes, most of it's going to flood our own property. And there's not like a lot of houses, because that's the other thing too. It's not like the one, and I think it was Oroville a few years ago that cracked and then they had to evacuate like hundreds of thousands of people out of there for fear that the dam was gonna totally fail. That's not the case where we are. There's no, I mean, most of it's ranch land. So
It is, no problem. Dawson's way.
that's been our argument that, you know, we're not comparable to these other dams. There should be some kind of level to what it is because the price is just so overwhelming for us.
A dam is considered, it's a water retention area. We are retaining water there.
We are.
And the definition by dam is anything over 25 feet. And we're 51 feet. Do we really,
Are we really 50?
well, yeah, because we're below ground level, obviously, because we're not 1 feet above ground. We're below ground, right?
Right, and the thing is too, is that dam is not at maximum capacity,
So
most of it.
therefore, we're not using the full 51 feet. So,
No, we're not.
we can reclassify, but we're only using,
We're at 30 feet right now,
sorry,
we're retaining 30 feet of water, right?
30 feet?
Yeah.
So they are, in their eyes, a dam. We're 25 feet.
That's a spray field dam, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so and it's like a seasonal thing, you know, because in the summer we
We're
don't
coming
have
up,
them.
winter, so we're at the
It's dropping.
peak height right now, of 30 feet.
And we've had a good amount of water come in, rainfall in the last couple of years. I mean, when it's drought seasons, that's even lower.
What's that dam retaining? Is that affluent from the?
So that's the water that is left the pond treatment area and is now being put into the. What do we call it,
Holding
detention pond?
Yeah.
It will be sprayed out in the spray.
So
It's treated,
the spray field water comes out of that pond.
it's treated
Yeah.
wastewater.
It's
Is it stage
spray.
one, stage two treated?
No.
Three?
I'm not sure.
It's all right.
It's not tertiary,
Frankly, not tertiary.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
it's not tertiary,
It's one
but
step
it's
above.
it's gone through the three
Secondary,
ponds and
secondary.
been treated
Secondary.
enough to be sprayed out.
So
It's the best answer.
obviously the spray fields. On the surface of the spray fields. like-
Yes,
So can't do it on the pond, we have to.
we have to have them.
The only way we can lower the level of height of the dam is spread the pond out, across $1 million, so therefore.
Yeah, they
It
kind
does
of,
bring it-
they kind of have us, that's why we keep poking them saying, you know, it's really not fair that we're in the same classification. Because if you look at something like the Oroville Dam, that's.
Orville Dam was spillway that drove, it was the dam itself, spillway, correct?
But it's still, I mean, you know what I'm saying, they evacuated so many people because they were running danger.
Right. There's no danger here.
There's such a minimal danger where we are, it just doesn't seem fair that we should be under the same ruling as something like that.
I think it's the only person down shot, so it's state senator. Heal the hurt, see that they could be,
They're 20.
perhaps be classified.
That's right.
We're not using 51 feet of the
This
dam.
is.
We're only using 30 feet.
Well, even if we use the 51, that's still jam wise,
I know.
not much.
Which is,
And,
it seems, this.
you know, the state does that in a lot of other categories. You know, there will be levels, and that's kind of what we've been hoping them to try to do, but
Well, I realize
it's a hard,
$16,000 just for a piece of paper
and one inspection.
and one inspection.
Costs a lot of money to drop for second.
It's a lot of money, for sure. It jumped off the page, but we get the check run every meeting, right? 16,000 jumped off the page to me. People, we don't even buy water from them, why do we have this dam?
We'll check to see if we've been putting the dam fees into permit fee account instead of the dam fee account. We'll check and see if that's what we coded in, and if so, we'll move that fee.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that part, right, because there are other permits that go with the wastewater treatment plant, not just the dam permit.
Yeah,
So I wonder if they all got clustered together.
well, the dam fees has its own account, so we'll check to make sure that we get it moved to the right account.
Anything else on those budget pages? So I'd like to propose that we take a break for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, 10 minutes.
Sure.
And that when we come back, we talk about maybe some ideas for planning. So, okay,
There's an event at 11 o'clock, a lot of us are attending.
Oh, well,
So we can keep that in mind a little bit.
it starts at 11 for those who have VIP.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I thought we were scheduled till 12. Was,
Use it. Was it needed?
I'm fine.
Dismiss early if there's not enough to talk about.
It's council's pleasure, take whatever time you need, but I just wanted, before we take a break, I wanted to just respond to the question earlier about city clerk and city treasurer. So state statute provides for a schedule for city council members, specifically in the state statute. There is no such schedule for city clerks and city treasurers. The state statute says that it is set discretion of the city council by ordinance or resolution. And there's no recommended schedule like there is for city council members. There's some cases and some attorney general's opinion basically says, yes, we give deference to the city council to fix that. Just can't be so low that it effectively wipes out the position. You don't be interested in doing it. But the discretion is going to be important. So if you wanted to set compensation based upon meeting attendance or hourly or whatever, you have absolute discretion to do that. And I've asked the deputy city clerk to look into whatever resolutions we've adopted in the past that have said that. That can be changed. Just want to leave that.
thank you.
Yeah, I'd love, based on whatever we find, I'd love to have that brought to that too.
So what do you guys want, 10 or 15-minute break?
Back 10-15,
Oh, that works.
be like 11 minutes.
Okay, and I think, what I'm thinking when we come back, if everybody think especially city staff, what's the stuff that needs to be done, especially like bird maintenance, vehicle replacement, stuff like that, and let's have, pretend you're building some luxury house and money's no object, but then when the reality of the money sits in, you start crossing out, what,
But yeah, we don't have the conversation, it's only gonna get worse.
yeah, okay, so do I need to do anything we're just gonna take a recess till 10:15. Okay, who unplugged my microphone? That's not
Well,
funny.
it's just coming online
It's
here.
moving on. Okay. I know you all wanna leave, but unplugging the microphones isn't funny.
On my list.
Does anybody is
According to Facebook, we have the opposite problem. You know, that I see stuff that is not on.
And then that gets like
Can you turn your mic on?
nope.
I didn't touch anything except shut it off.
There
Just took some
we
time.
are.
Okay. Okay, we are back from our recess at 10:25. Continue our meeting. And again, we will just continue open dialogue discussion. Thank you for your unless any other council members have anything pressing, I'd like to hear from staff. But staff who is willing to share with, your wish, what you see is that what you really need to address.
I'll go first. So as far as public works is concerned, I'm just gonna share what's on my radar. Wastewater treatment plant, we have a barn that's. I know the barn's taken a long time to collapse, but it's in bad shape. The barn is used for storage of the goats. We're gonna have to do something with that. I don't know if it's just taking it down. Or if we have to find some kind of building to replace it. I'm not quite sure yet. Biggest support. It's big, we can use every bit of it.
Oh, yeah, goats are half,
We're not talking tough shit, we're talking about bar.
like a real
It's a real barn,
bar.
and as you can imagine, after all these years, like real barns look like.
The goats get in there to get out of the weather, and then on the other side, the people that own the goats have a side by side park in there, and we have a sludge pump also stored in there.
Made of wood.
It's got a concrete foundation around it. Timber. Nice barn.
That's why it's leaking.
Yeah, the wind has blown some of the tin off the roof. It's
But that could be pretty expensive.
It needs help, I can share a picture later with you. We also have drainage issues out there that we need to deal with. And wastewater plant treatment plant, we're always. It runs so much that there's always equipment cost to that.
Issues that a backhoe could solve.
Pardon?
Issues that a backhoe could solve. Or just-
The drainage?
Yeah,
The dra-
drainage.
it's beyond just that, it's also engineering costs and things like that as well. And then on the wastewater treatment plant end, we're still looking at about a year to a year and a half out before we'll be able to, have Matt take the whole thing over and drop the AWA service. Which is
There's no fault.
pricey, they're gonna be involved for a while. So when we can finally get Matt out there alone, we'll get a nice little price break from that. Another thing that's come up is Old Sacramento Road, we are now responsible for maintaining the road. We're maintaining from city limits to the wastewater treatment ponds. Which means we have potholing and all that fun stuff that goes with that. That's now on us now due to the annexation of all the properties that came in with Reader Sutherland. And that was a pretty big annexation. So we are now gonna be incurring costs on Old Sacramento Road that we did not have before.
What the plan is, how many, about a mile past city limits, right? It's quite a ways out there.
Yeah, it's a little ways. So,
everything-
so basically, so you understand what happened is LAFCO, I mean legally, LAFCO split it up. And when they split it up between us and the county, they gave us a little piece, and then the county a little piece, then us a little piece, and then the county a little piece. And they met with the county, it's like, it's like impossible to really manage with all these tiny little pieces.
What does the county use their pieces for?
They're just responsible for,
They're not using it for anything, they're just,
well, they're just road, I mean,
oh, the road, you're talking about the itself.
yeah, the road itself, it's the road maintenance.
Well, what it is it's city limits, county, then city limits, then county, then city limits.
It's cut up. So when we met with Amador County, we came to an agreement where that is really too difficult to manage, oh, that's your tree, no, that's my tree, no, because the sections are very small. So we came to an agreement, we would take one piece, the piece from city limits to the ponds, so we'd have one continuous piece, and they'll take the rest of it. But that's like a gentleman's agreement right now. If something comes up as far as grant money and things like that, we're gonna have to go back to the LAFCO and look at it in those sections and exact percentages. If that makes sense. But as far as just general maintenance, we're doing it these.
How many acres does the plant itself actually sit on?
Use your mic.
Sewer plant, is it an acre, 2 acres, 3
Yeah.
acres?
Your microphone, Doug.
Sorry.
I would have to,
How large is the section of land that the plant actually occupies? Roughly,
it's more than 2 acres, I get.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look up the parts.
It's not in the city.
It's a mixture, it's not in the city,
It's outside the city,
yes,
and was dedicated to the city by the county at some point
yes.
years ago, so. So it is city property now,
It is city property,
it has to be.
yeah,
Okay.
but it's not contiguous with the rest of the city.
Curious about why it was built so far away from the city. Maybe we have to send pipes all the way out there, right?
Yeah, but
From the
it's,
city to get.
it's all relative though, it seems like far away, but it really isn't very far away.
It's a half mile.
And, you know, I'm sure that at some point the city will grow out of it.
The pipes that come out of the city to service the plant, are they in the street or where are they?
They're kind of in the easement, I think, for the most part.
Next to the road, next to the site or?
Yeah, kind of, sometimes they're in the center, sometimes they're on the side,
They kind of,
and then they cut across the field.
They are, there more than one was out there? One
No.
line,
No, there's just one.
one main line.
Yeah,
one
main
8-10 inch pipe, whatever.
line. Not like that,
Probably about an acre.
yeah.
So we're looking at taking on some new expenses with that.
So my question is now that we've identified that we have to not take care of this, what about prior maintenance? County basically gave us the worst part of the road.
Yep.
That they didn't maintain, it should be on them to maintain it, because they didn't think they needed to maintain it. So it's by deferred maintenance that we're getting this really rough patch of road that costs us a fortune.
We are, but
And they should mitigate some of those fees.
unfortunately, that was signed off on way back when. And it's already a done deal, so, I mean, there's really no place for us, when the agreement was set up and it went through LAFCO. What was it, 2015 or something? It didn't happen then, so I don't know what we could do now, but I can tell you that,
We could
I had the same ideas the county had. ACTC was really strict on the money this time, and they're like, we're not giving any money to city projects, they have to be projects that, support the whole county.
That's the main artery.
They,
False.
so that's exactly where us in the county are going. So because we're road sharing this now, the next time it comes up, the county and the city together, we're going to apply for road money for Old Sacramento Road. And we're gonna argue that it's some main road for everybody on this side of the county
North County, yeah.
and all the way up.
Why are we
So-
road share?
We are road sharing due to the annexation because we're gonna now impact Old Sacramento Road, although it hasn't happened.
May never happen.
Citadel's supposed to
It
come
actually
out,
may never happen.
it might never happen, but like I said, I can't undo what's already been signed as an agreement. Old Sacramento Road was, or Citadel Ridge is supposed to exit out there. Oh shoot, Dana, what's the new one? Arroyo Woods is supposed to exit out there, Shenandoah Ridge was supposed to exit out there, and a couple more properties. So as they exit out on Old Sacramento Road, we were told we had to take responsibility for some of Old Sacramento Road because our development was gonna directly impact it significantly. But the development hasn't happened.
CR?
CR, Arroyo Woods, Shenandoah Ridge,
There's no road yet to full cycle. CR.
no, but that's not how it was
Doesn't matter.
planned out.
Yeah, it doesn't.
When they went through the whole annexation process. That was
Even if it
taken.
never happens, we're stuck with it.
How much
Yes.
road are they saying you have to maintain?
All the way to the ponds,
From where?
from the city limits.
Half mile?
From the fairgrounds.
At least, fairgrounds to the pond, to the
ponds.
pond or to the spray field.
No, to the ponds.
The ponds, yeah.
To the ponds, they're from the ponds out.
That's-
There's one section of that roadway that's county. But then after the ponds, there's one section of roadway that's city. So we traded that city for that county, so it's easier, so it's one contiguous portion of roadway for us.
Yeah.
So it's easier, so it's not a portion of road for us, a portion of road for county, a portion of road for us.
Otherwise, there's land markers out there.
And
And we would go up to the land marker and stop. Where they would go up to the land marker and stop. And it's just a poor way to manage the road altogether. And then if there's any citizen concerns, I mean, I really don't wanna be the one that says, oh, well, you're a foot over the line, call the county. Cause that gets tricky too.
Of course, when you say manage it, we're not really gonna go out there and repave it, we're gonna pay somebody to go do it for us, right?
Right, no, we're gonna be doing mostly things like potholes, easement clearance, trees and cows, a boulder that might slide down, and those are the types of things that typically would happen. And like I was saying before, we know the road's not good, so we're gonna apply to ACTC to try to get grant monies from them based on the fact that it is a major county artery and it is also a fire route, which gives it priority as well.
Can't
Thinking that we might be able to get money that way.
go back to CTC and try to renegotiate that.
That was done
commitment.
through LAFCO during the development process. And we've managed to squeak by because the county forgot it was there. They finally realized. So I guess we should just be thankful we haven't had this for the last 8 years. But we will be taking on those responsibilities. The pool, I still got ADA compliance out there. The acid room has issues and there are new compliance rules for that as well. There's no ventilation there and you cannot have an acid room anymore without ventilation, so we're gonna have to upgrade that. And
How big a structure do you?
the acid room's very small. But the door to the acid room is old school, it's metal, it's completely. It's warped, it's hard to open and close, it's completely out of compliance.
Would one of the pop-up buildings across the street work for that?
No, it's connected into the pool building and it's connected because it feeds into the equipment room. To feed the acid chemicals in there, so it's not, yeah, it's gonna be the same room, it's more like closet. There's really nothing more in there other than the acid tank, so to speak. It's not fancy. The SERA risk management inspector is gonna be coming out and looking at that. He's insisting on seeing our pool. And part of the reason is because it's older and he knows that some of these new compliance things are probably not in place. So I don't know if he'll say anything about the actual tank or the room, although the room is just a little room. But I know he will get us for the door, and the doors are expensive. And he will get us for the ventilation. So we still have work at the pool to deal with. City Hall, City Hall, we need roof repairs. The floor is becoming a real problem and a hazard. And we're gonna have to fix this, the understructure somehow. We also need to turn this room into an ADA bathroom. What I call the dungeon, which are these rooms back behind your area, have so many issues. If you wanna know, I'll take you back there. When we had our fire marshal inspection, those rooms were a big problem. They weren't thrilled about the rooms back there. We're still trying to get the bell tower down and change that into a parking lot. So there will be extra costs there. And then,
Do what?
well, to take down the bell tower, we're gonna have it surveyed.
It's $500.
Yeah. That we're gonna have it surveyed because we are.
Neighbors.
We have neighbors that we're not exactly sure where the property lines are.
Trouble with ADA issues as far as the ramp and here too as well, for the parking.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that hole back in there to make that, yes. I mean, there's gonna be money in there. No matter how we go. So. The good thing though is it will take staff off Main Street. And give the public more parking.
5, 6 cars. 7
I'm-
cars.
I'm not exactly sure how many cars we need to put out there. I need to see the surveying before I can, because there's questions about where it is. I'm thinking we might be able to get staff back there. And let's see. The booster station up in Zinfandel is not secure. It should have a fence around it. In general, we have a lot of OSHA compliance that we're missing right now. The rules keep changing. So the safety vests that we have are no longer acceptable and things like that. So we're gonna have some equipment and safety gear, some hazard corrections and some more training to get up to speed with the OSHA compliance. And the big thing, I know Mike had mentioned, trucks. We did get like 3 trucks, not too long ago when Rex was here. We never get new trucks, we always get used trucks.
And way,
So-
compared to what we had before.
Yeah, and
It's all
actually,
cotton.
they're not as scary as what we gave up. But what we're really hurting in is our dump truck is over 50 years old. And we only really have 2 big pieces of equipment, and that's the backhoe and the dump truck. And I don't know how we could get along without the dump truck.
Is
Lots of-
dump truck in the town lot? Dump truck in air lot.
The dump truck was just in the shop. I believe it was $6,000 to get it up to date.
So we're throwing a lot of good money in.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
It does, I don't think it has a super long lifespan left.
And it's only good around town.
And yeah, we can't drive it on the highways because we've kind of been told by highway patrol to keep stuff.
I'll see.
So-
You're not gonna buy brand new, you buy what?
We typically buy used
They don't
pieces.
cost all that much. That's right.
It would be nice if we had one that there was a lift on the back,
What?
you know, the kind that can literally dump out.
If you got a truck, should it already have that?
It dumps.
Yes, it's,
Trying to sort.
it's old.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's rough.
So equipment wise, that would be,
So $6,000 could have went a long ways.
I'm sorry,
$6,000. $6,000 could have went a long ways into like a newer used vehicle, say.
yes, but I mean. You gotta understand too. That is a piece of equipment we can't live without, so the $6,000 was like, oh, thank you for keeping this thing. Operating kind of deal, yeah.
What about anything else major here at City Hall?
Well, the things that I read off. This building is gonna be major, the floor, the roof, and the back rooms here. All need major work, the back rooms are even buried. So part of the wall is buried under dirt, so they can't even, we're gonna have to dig all that out before John Peabody can even tell us. What else going on in the back there? Have you been back there?
I'd be back.
Okay.
It'd be easier to rip it off and replace it.
It's scary, it's bad.
I wonder how much of this $247,000 community benefit fund money can be used for some of these items that you're referring to? Right,
I think,
there's $250,000 there,
yeah, I think, I don't have that document open up right now,
okay,
but it can be used,
I thought,
it's hot, and it can probably be used for other projects.
I'm pretty sure about it's probably be about $30,000 or $40,000. Used dump truck,
Yeah, the
they
ones.
go to auction pretty cheap.
I-
Way better than you got here, but
Yeah, no, the ones we were, Selby and I were looking at before were closer to 60 to 70.
new.
No, used. I'm not saying we did a great search, you know, we were just trying to get a ballpark figure.
So I think for the sake of everybody's time, just to kind of go through a high level list of the wish list.
What you need to do, reserve stuff.
Exactly. If I was Jill Linda, I would just tell you. Kathleen, what about, or anybody, what about like that ranch house that's out there?
What about it?
I mean, I imagine there's some deferred maintenance, but do you think there are critical things that need to be addressed now before we have a real problem on our hands? That's gonna cost more money in the long run. What do you think?
From looking at it, it looks pretty good. It has a newer roof. It's got dual pane windows in it already.
Oh, nice,
It could probably use paint here in the near future.
okay,
Can we sell it?
No, because it's right in the middle of the wastewater treatment plant. Can't, I will say though, in all honesty, when the renters leave, I strongly recommend we don't rent it out again. It is a big liability.
why's that?
Because of where it's situated. It's right next to the spray fields.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are several things that could really go wrong over there with it being where it is.
So if it wasn't rented out, would it be used for other?
Yeah, if it wasn't rented out, then we would just incorporate it into the wastewater treatment plant uses.
Yeah, okay. What about Lodge Hill?
Okay, so Lodge Hill, as it is right now, only using the lower floor, is in pretty good shape. The only thing that triggers me over there is the staircase that at some point in time we're gonna have to deal with. That probably can be done in-house with John Peabody's help, I think. Obviously the upstairs is unusable. But we've been using Lodge Hill like that for a long time. The fire marshal was in there too, and they were okay with the upstairs the way it was, as long as nobody's going in there. So I did have them check that out, because that was a concern of mine too, but, if we leave Lodge Hill the way it is now, we're okay for now.
Well, I think there's some siding and some window issues. That's only gonna allow rock to set into those walls, broken windows. The water's gonna get in there and create bigger problems. So I don't know if there's, ways of placing windows where. I
The
mean, so
problem
these
we're having
windows-
with the windows, Peter, is every time we fix the
I know,
windows
kids break them,
upstairs,
I
the
get it.
kids intentionally break them out.
I get it.
But Matt and I have had discussions about how we could, possibly seal those windows off.
I said, just board them up for now, is there, what
I mean, they are boarded up right now, but I think we could come up with a better way to do that.
What's with the contents in the upstairs there, there's all kinds of stuff. Chairs, that's all gone?
No, the chairs and tables are the rental chairs and tables for Lodge Hill.
Old wooden chairs up there?
Oh, no, those were part of the lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple, things that some people consider historic up there.
It's like flea market stuff.
That stuff.
Oh, yeah, I don't know when you were up there last, Akron had a bunch of stuff up there and we had them cleared out. So there's not that much stuff up there now.
How about at the courtyard?
Oh, that's right, I forgot that one, that was on the top of my list too, the courtyard move. We would like to move the courtyard out to the wastewater treatment plant. But that's going to, after seeing the engineering report, not be as inexpensive as we were hoping.
Is the sewer treatment plant a better location than the water tank?
Yes,
Because
because of safety issues.
the hill,
The hill, the blind spot, the turn, whenever Geo was working up there right at that place and one of their workers almost got hit by a car. We grabbed him, pulled him out of the way. It's just not a good place to be trying to turn in and out, especially with equipment.
Any other properties or anything that I'm not thinking of that I'm forgetting? What about that? Any thoughts of big pieces of equipment or that haven't already been discussed?
Not off the top of my head, I don't know.
just a dump truck, huh? It's one piece.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I just think of a vacuum truck.
Oh,
We've talked about that
I
for
didn't think
years.
about that, yeah,
What kind of truck?
a
Vacuum
vac.
truck.
Truck to help on water leaks.
So the vac truck is a necessity if we're gonna do more and more water service repairs. Because you can't, when the water's coming out like that, you can't work. So the vac truck basically does a vacuum,
Are you talking
sucks the water out.
The catch basins primarily?
I'm talking about anytime we have a break in the water system. So we're totally reliant on AWA and hope that maybe they can get us a vac truck out. The post office was a good example. We can't bail the water because that's what you're up to. You're trying to bail water by hand. And the pumps we have aren't big enough. You need something that can really take in that water pressure. So when we go out on water break calls, if it's anything more than a tiny line, we can't patch it up,
Can't do it.
can't do it. And AWA's resources are being stretched thinner and thinner as time goes by, and it's harder to get a response from them. We can still get a response, I mean, they're still helpful, but sometimes they just don't have anybody to send. And sometimes they just send the back truck, which is okay too, because I mean, at least that allows us to work on.
5,000 gallons.
Yeah, that's probably what AWWID brings out, I would say a 5,000 gallon. And don't ask me what that trucks cost because I haven't been there yet.
More,
Thank you for reminding.
more than dump trucks.
Yeah, way more than dump trucks.
Way more.
But yeah, if we're going down the road and we're gonna be doing more water repairs, then that's gonna be a necessity too.
What about anything else major at the fire station that isn't already being addressed? With, okay, so the fire station, we're in good shape. Huh?
The
Where's your
only,
office
the only
paper?
other one is the ambulance station and, I can't tell you yet because John Peabody's gonna go through there and do a review. I'm not aware of anything major there.
Tracy?
Give me the mic.
My
Margaret
stuff's
said,
just,
Margaret said, why are you calling on my staff to come up with all these things?
Yeah, my stuff's just little stuff like updating the front office, maybe some updated office equipment. Maybe fixing the carpet and the floor in there, stuff like that.
shredder. In your
Yeah,
shredder.
the shredder, paper shredder, that's secure, ours is super old. Maybe a paper folder for the 1 million bills that I hold every month.
You mean that truck mounted one?
So that's all I got, just little things like that.
Victoria, Dana?
I would just have to piggyback on the roof situation. It's a little unnerving to be working on the stuff that we're working on and seeing a big spot come over your desk. Wondering if it's gonna be your turn.
Dana?
I conferred with Kathleen, so most of those issues of the building have been already addressed, so thank you.
Margaret?
Well, I had my list over here and I've been checking off as staff went through their lists. And the only thing that really has to be covered is, our computers are getting very old. And so we're gonna have to start replacing computers. And that was the only thing my staff has.
I said a random thought, the state of California buys new back trucks and new dump trucks all the time. They might be willing, rather than throw their stuff at auction, donating to the city.
State GSA.
I mean, they get rid of stuff that's got a lot of life in it. Could be thought.
Yeah.
Be happy to look into it, see.
Yeah, they do the GSA auctions.
Yes.
But usually, like, city, you can buy stuff like $1. Right?
Exactly.
Frank? Any
No,
thoughts of, okay, Mary?
Only some of the thoughts that have come up recently, they're more with looking at processes, we were talking about folder, I learned about that works recently. Some of the things that can be done that smaller agencies do with billing, because it's a lot of bills for internal staff to be sending out, is that you can work with an outside vendor to actually send an electronic file to, so that they would actually go through the process of sending those bills out or sending them electronically, which they can do on a much grander scale because they do it for a lot of agencies, and it frees up staff time. So I was just starting to explore what the cost difference would be for a cost benefit. So you can avoid those
Well,
kinds of pieces of equipment.
And I know we have a lot of customers that are not interested in the electronic stuff. They like their paper bill, they have a lot of elderly people that want to pay by check. They want the paper bill, because we've been trying to steer in that direction, but.
Yeah, and they would still, any company you work with would still be willing to mail out the physical bills, or they would do electronic for those who want them. And it would become a little bit of a discussion to make sure that we're not creating any kind of issue. community changing the process, but we need to see what the cost would be first to see. So that's really, just kind of looking at processes, to make decisions, what I think of that.
I keep getting shut down on postage meter. Can't believe it. We actually put stamps on each envelope. I keep hearing it's too expensive. I mean, I know that doesn't solve the problem of mailing out the stuff, but wouldn't that solve, wouldn't that take some time away?
I haven't looked at the cost, but we can certainly.
I mean,
It's pretty expensive to buy stamps every month.
Well, but a postage machine.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference.
We can look at it.
Well, isn't there that company Pitney Bowes, does it?
And I actually, thing just came in the mail that I put on your desk for,
So we'll look at.
That's what they give you for scale too.
Okay, council, Peter, anything? Doug, anything else? We have time tonight.
All the useful, just I think this is an excellent meeting. I think we should have at least once or twice a year. Personally.
We've got informal, it's everybody by first name.
Yeah. I think, first of all, thank you everybody for your input. I think it's invaluable because you see stuff that we just can't see because you do it every day, right? And I think like, geez, 95% of the stuff we've talked about is like the starting framework of a capital improvement plan. I'd love to see us, quantify it into a plan that we can then prioritize and, address, right? It's like, okay, we've got X number of things to do at City Hall. We know, okay, roof is number one. Or depending on what we find out, maybe we need to do the floor before we should do the roof because, well, one holds the other, whatever, right? But within that, it'd be great to be able to bring that together. That way we can budget and allocate and plan for addressing it and hopefully in time overcome that Achilles heel of deferred maintenance, be a proactive side. Don't know if we'll ever be able to financially get there. But, the other advantage of having a capital improvement plan is then we have, because we've done the legwork already, we quasi have shovel-ready projects that if we come across the obligated grant funds or a grant program, we have something that we could take and drop in right away as part of our application because we've already done the work. And so I'd love to see us, we just touched on every building. Now it's just getting in a little more detail and start, maybe working with Matt or whomever to get engineer estimates on what some of that work may be, where we can, the input, right, is excellent. I want to throw on just a couple of things for consideration. Looking at a general plan update or revision, I don't know to what level it would be, but looking to at least expand our sphere of influence, not with the intent of promoting growth, but with the goal of the intent of being able to influence and be a part of, have actually a seat at the table for development that's being proposed around the city where, so it's being able to have the influence. And I don't know if us expanding that would then become a major piece. I know LAFCO would have to be involved with the sphere of influence piece. I don't know to what level, but I'd love for us to consider at least looking at that because, as we learned with the proposed project there, 16 and 49, that it's outside of our sphere of influence. So we have the same input as anybody that's general. We don't have a formal seat at the table when it's a project that's actually going to touch the city boundary, right? On the back side.
It'll affect us too.
What's that?
It'll affect us.
It will affect us. And it actually touches the city limit, but because it's outside the sphere of influence, we don't have a seat at the table. We have the same input as somebody who lives in Volcano having public input on the project, right? Our weight arguably would be more, but we don't have a formal legally recognized input on that.
Well, actually, we do, because we're just not on the council at the Everett County Transportation, but we will next year have a table
different though.
Highway 16, you're talking about.
I'm talking about like the development outside, right?
Right.
We don't have a legal,
You're right.
you know, they don't have to get our buy off on
No.
that project because it's not part of our sphere of influence. And, the last thing, and I have no idea what would be involved with this, I've been around plenty of annexations, but most of it's been vacant land, growing up and potentially looking at, you know, with, you know, if the casino ends up going forward and if Shenandoah Inn ultimately, is raised as a result of the proposed project, looking at the potential of the annexation of, you know, the Ace Hardware properties there that are really, you know, they're part of the city. I know it's come up as conversations in the past and whether you pay impact or connection fees or not pay, you know, it'd be worth at least looking at and considering, because I have to imagine the sales tax that we're losing as a city through Ace Hardware and the taco truck would certainly outweigh the cost of any connection fees over time. I don't know what the numbers are, those are assumptions, but looking at the potential for, you know, for that annexation and what that would be involved in, you know, and maybe it just wouldn't be that, but maybe, you know, finding a way to, you know, maybe that part of, whether it's not just that area, but maybe looking at, you know, just cleaning up our city limit boundary as it goes around, right? It's sort of it looked like a gerrymandered, congressional district, you know, in some ways. And, you know, so I don't know if there's a bigger, different opportunity, but would love to at least have the conversation to see if it's worthwhile and if it's something that we collectively, would like to consider. But, you know, I mean, that'd be, obviously, all three of those are, you know, big projects that would require time and money. So I don't have anything else at this point. I really echo what Doug said. I think this meeting is just absolutely invaluable. I appreciate having you guys here and having your input because we don't get it otherwise. Sure, we have informal conversations as we pass and we do whatever, but being able to have it to consider it, you know, makes us to be, you know, better stewards by having an understanding. So thank you. Your turn.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add except for where do we go from here as far as some of, or, you know, what are the wishes of the council and then also what would city staff like to see as far as where do we go from here on some of these things that we spoke about in the second half of our meeting. Do we need to talk about I kind of like how we kind of incorporated a couple of things in this worksheet or this workshop. We talked about, you know, the beginnings of the capital improvement plan, which definitely ties into when we're talking about the budget. So as far as a little bit more strategic planning, do we want to schedule another workshop? Do we want to just address this over the summer when we talk more about the budget? So I'm asking the council for.
I don't think we need a workshop necessarily. This, it gives us a list of work, right? And Margaret will refine that list, and kind of come to us with that under, but I mean, we got them all.
No, I agree with you. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yes, that was
Doug, any additional thoughts?
I'm in favor of scheduling another workshop meeting. The walk out here, and if you don't do it, it's not gonna happen. I say we pick a date, 3, 4, 5 months from now, whatever, the end of our fiscal year, but have a date on the calendar and come back to what we've done today. But this is really important. Again, if we don't schedule it now, it'll probably fall through the cracks. And we're talking about next year. That's my take on it.
So what as far as budget goes and adopting a budget? What's the timeline look like for that?
So I'm not sure which meetings you want to do that at. The next May meeting, second May meeting of the month, we can probably bring an updated draft with a bit more of the budget formatting. And incorporate the things we've talked about today, and then the adoption. So just for my purposes, I'll be here for the second meeting in May and the first meeting in June, but I won't be in town. Second meeting in June. So just over those 2 meetings, May and June, I'll be able to attend to be able to address any budget questions. So my anticipation is that we can have an updated preliminary proposed at the second May meeting, and then the first June, potentially budget adoption of the council.
So could we say that at either one of those meetings, it would be like a regular city council meeting, and that most of the agenda, Margaret, would be on budget, and then the other issues that we just talked about for planning ahead.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to schedule a 4-hour Saturday workshop, that we can have the workshop during a regular council meeting. Does that work? Then,
A couple mini,
huh?
just about a couple mini workshops.
Yeah. So then I don't think we have anything else for today. I think, are we ready to call it a day for this meeting?
One something on a proposed, I mean, I really like this format, I like the engagement, I like. This has been valuable, whether we do it in an evening or a weekend, the timing for me is relevant. I support, Councilmember Sims, done great, we're informed on those. Getting something on the calendar, what I'd like to propose is that it would be like a goal setting session, right? As we've talked about, that some of the city manager's priorities we make are really should be citywide goals at that higher level. And by going through and establishing and approving and formalizing goals, it'll help staff to be, short, medium, and long-term strategic. Because now we have some adopted goals, and it may be a great opportunity, with that next, workshop. And I mean, for me, it could be, June, or maybe doing something in June or July, finding a time in there that would give, ample time for us to work through. So just a thought.
Okay, and I'm gonna piggyback on that. So as we've discussed, in the past. We've hired a company that's come in and done those strategic goal planning and really super focused. And I would propose that we look into that because it keeps things really tight and focused on moving. And you get a good comprehensive, your list of things and timelines, because you can break it all into time, 4 or 5 years or 2 years or whatever, And I think that would help us. I mean, this is a great forum for this situation, but I think we need super focus when it comes to that, so that we have, and I'd even pull, because we have files of those that we've done in the past, where we can pull those forward and look at it. What was our stuff what did we target in the past, and where are we at today in our future? Are they the same? Have they changed? And we have public input from all that too, because there was public involvement. So I would say we would something formal like that really more focuses.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some great consultants. We started with a consultant, last year, it looked like they were gonna lead an effort for that, and they just disappeared and left us in pickle. So now it's a matter of picking it back up and going forward from there. So, but yeah, I like that a lot. I think there's a ton of good people out there that can help it. Hopefully something will be inexpensive. We bribe them with good wine or something.
Yeah, they're not, it wasn't ridiculous expensive for coming. But, it really gave us a good product in the end.
I certainly support that and agree that we had hoped to have something done, I think, last August or something, and for a few different reasons, just didn't work out. So, and so I think that would be enough to help find a consultant and look at schedules and availability. And I know since I've been on the council, traditionally, there's one meeting in July that's usually, we don't have it
That's fair.
when it's, yeah,
So
so,
we only get one meeting.
yeah. So I don't know if this, using a consultant for some strategic planning, if it's feasible that could happen before July or the first meeting in July, or if we're gonna have to look at like August or beyond,
Yeah.
just because of schedules and that sort of thing.
Well, I think that all boils down to council travels.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I said, what this majority of council, so they had all to be here.
Yeah,
Because I think it's important to have all of us here.
yeah. And staff too,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
So Margaret, do you feel like, and Mary, do you feel like we've given enough direction and provided the feedback that you were hoping for?
Yeah.
Or that you needed, maybe not what you were hoping for, but,
Yeah, I have everything that I need.
okay. And again, thank you for being here and making the trip, and thank you to everybody who gave up your Saturday morning to be here. It's very much appreciated.
It's important, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so unless anybody has anything else to say, go ahead and adjourn the meeting. So the meeting